Welcome to an episode of SGTV. We're privileged today to have some experts on the panel discussing safe isolation in Safe September. I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'll introduce my colleague, Marcus.
I'm surprised you remember my name now. I've not been here that long. So I'm Marcus. I'm part of the technical engagement team here, and we've had this push for Safer September. And like Neil said, we've decided to bring these guys in for a bit of a roundtable discussion. If I go to my left, we'll introduce, what's your name?
My name is Elijah.
Elijah. And Elijah, you are?
I'm an apprenticeship for Pegasus Electrical.
Pegasus Electrical. And is this the owner of Pegasus Electrical?
Yeah, this is Eddie.
It is. Do you want to introduce yourself, owner of Pegasus Electrical?
I'm Eddie from Pegasus Electrical. Electrical contractors based in the West Midlands.
And to my right, I've got Matt, who's a contractor.
So I'm Matthew. I'm an electrical contractor around sort of Lincolnshire, Cambridgeshire. Used to do some teaching. Obviously, I know this guy. I know Marcus as well. So yeah, looking forward to it.
And finally, from Electrical Safety First, we've got the expert on the panel, who's Richard.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard Harvey. I'm an electrical installation safety engineer with Electrical Safety First. Had quite a lot of dealings with Eddie over many, many years. Equally, Marcus and Matt. Haven't had much to do with Neil, but it's been nice to feel that we're all kind of pointing in the same direction and looking to achieve the same goal. So I'm looking forward to a really interesting conversation around working safely and ultimately going home after a hard day's graft. So yeah, looking forward to it.
So Eddie, where did this all start, this safe isolation? Because I remember speaking to you early on, quite a while, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was chatting with Sparky through up Glasgow area, and it was around the social media, how it portrays itself with having consumer units and distribution boards open and evidently still live. Yeah. It's not a dangerous thing in itself, but it's that persona of showing youngsters and what have you, and learners, like, making it look as though it's normal to just have open fuse boards all over the place.
Yeah, I suppose there's an element of that, isn't there, where that generation, they look up to these sort of influencers in these videos and they try and copy that exact image. And if that image is incorrect, they think that is the correct option, don't they?
Yeah. So you mean like having a picture of the board with all the breakers on, and it's all obviously open then, and so portrays being live as such?
Not necessarily it's a dangerous thing in itself, but obviously if you're portraying that as a normal thing to be doing, is having fuse boards open and live, then obviously it needed something doing about it. And we was having a conversation, and it was in August at the time. September was the next month. Safe for September, come about hashtag Safe for September, and that's where it started rolling.
And then that leads us on to Electrical Safety First, and then there is a guidance practices out there that are free to download. And Richard, can you tell us a bit more about these guidance? Because they're not from a YouTuber, they're more from industry and boards that make them.
Yeah, so Electrical Safety First, we're a charity that's dedicated to reducing deaths and injuries that are caused by electricity, whether that's from a product related side or whether it's from an installation side. So I work alongside Dave, Martin and Luke on the installation side of things. So on our website, we've got a number of free best practice guides, 1 to 10, all ranging from different subjects. Best practice guide 2 is purely on safe isolation procedures, safe working practices, etc. But as you quite rightly said, it's not just our opinion, what I think the safe isolation process and everything else that goes with it should be. The best practice guides are put together by consensus, and most of the contributing organisations you would have heard of, so NIC, EIC, NAPIT, City and Guilds, the Health and Safety Executive, they all come together and it does take quite a lot of time because, we might not agree on a particular part, but then we have to listen to all the members, and then collectively we'll come together and agree on an arrangement where it can be put out in the simplest terms possible. So all the guides are free to download. We have just had a bit of a rebrand, so I don't have any of the paper ones left. We've been at every ELEX this year, myself and my colleague Dave, trying to promote and remind people of their obligations under EAWR, etc., etc.
Yeah, on the electricity work regulations. And like, just coming to yourself, are you aware of these guidance being an apprentice? Have you ever seen the Safe Isolation Good Practice Guide?
I've seen them in practice. I'm soon yet to learn them, but Eddie always shows me before we get into a job to make sure that I've got to make it safe before we mess with any live wires or anything. So I have seen it in practice. I'm just yet to learn about it.
And I think that's important for the safe isolation, isn't it? And Elijah sort of hit the nail on the head there, and what we would maybe want all electricians to to sort of copy that practice. He clearly said his boss shows him and continuously shows him. And I think from the conversations we've all been having today, like, that's one of the things that's missing, especially what you've said, isn't it, Eddie? That middle person showing that level of competence to their electrician. We can go on and talk about colleges and stuff like that, which we will do, I imagine so. But it's not just a college's effort that has to be put in. It has to come across all the board, doesn't it, really?
It has to be all parties involved working with it. So that is from the apprentice, like asking the questions. Also the whys, why are we locking off, you know, and explain for the reasons. Well, basically we all want to go home safe at the end of the day. How we do it and such like, but then the electrician who's got the apprentice with him actually doing that, them parts, doing the locking off and any paperwork that needs to go with it. Depends on the job, because I mean, safe isolation, it covers a multitude of things. You ain't just putting a padlock on an MCB and that's your lot.
No.
There's a lot of other different things. So and then that goes throughout, you know, it could be a contracts manager and he's got to make sure you've obviously got the right kit for it. It's in good condition, everything else, you're using the right test equipment, that it's to the latest standards. And then the governor, even above that, you know, health and safety person in the company, you know, whereas like myself, you know, I'm everybody in the bottle washer. So I've got to contain all them roles and pass on the information. So I've got to make sure
it's similar to you, isn't it, Matt? Where
Yeah.
you're obviously and I was a self-employed contractor, and like Eddie said, the onus is on us, isn't
It's
it?
on, all the time. You mentioned well, Safe for September. So that's start of the college year, new intake. So like you've obviously been at college for how many weeks now?
Would you start in November?
I
did
start
you say?
in November.
Oh, you start in November. Oh, okay. Sorry. So not normally the first intake is in September, isn't it, of college sort of thing, and that's ultimately where if you've got like level 1, level 2 full-time learners, that's the first time they're ever going to come into contact with the word safe isolation, and that's usually when it's sort of in the health and safety unit at the start. That's when it's going to be spoken about.
What could we do more, Richard, to improve this across the board? Because I don't just think it's schools and colleges, you know, the apprentice, you know, or you see people doing the AM2 in failing on safe isolation. You question yourself why after 42 months you're failing safe isolation. So what can we do as an industry to improve it?
Come together, really, and we have tried to do that. We kind of come together with a number of other organisations that Mark Allison from Apprentice 1-to-1, we all got involved actively to try and push that forward. And again, we were given free space at all the elexes throughout the year. And not only, you know, the key players within the different organisations, but manufacturers like yourself. It's great to see that there's an interest going within from manufacturers as well. So is there something that manufacturers could do in terms of their products? So for instance, a consumer unit, you might get various labels and things to remind you of tightening up connections and stuff. Is there an additional label or something that could be fitted to the enclosure or the lid?
That's a great, you know, even inside the boxes, instructions, just anything. This, because we talk about, we've got the electrical warning sign saying about the voltage, so why not have a sign in there that says, you know, please ensure you carry out safe isolation before changing this board.
Start off, work safely or not at all. That's how I always got taught from my boss. If you don't want to work safely, get your stuff and go.
Again, it's a visual aid. It's something small that can actually go a long way, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and I think you've got to keep fighting the fight. That, you know, the title of our presentation was called Safe Isolation, What's Your Excuse? And, you know, the amount of excuses that people use is just ridiculous. And we all get a bit complacent and we all say, well, it's okay, it's only me working. You know, there's no way nobody can turn it off or turn it on. But as Eddie said, there are so many different aspects to the basic steps of safe isolation that you need to consider. It's not just a straightforward step 1, step 2. There are other things to consider, and the more complex installations become, single phase, three phase, etc. And now, of course, with prosuming installations and a number of other sources of supply.
Mark did a big thing on safe isolation at the Elects, didn't he? Where he had a rig there set up and talked about the different things you need to take into consideration when we have that prosumer as
well. It's repetition, isn't it? You know, going back to the question about why are, you know, apprentices, learners failing AM2, and you keep repeating and you keep going over the same stuff with them. It's not like in the 90s when I did my apprenticeship where you only had the CITB books and things like that now.
A neon screwdriver.
And all that stuff. There are so many great CPD opportunities to go on the internet and get, and other, you know, little channels like yourselves with your SGTV. There's so many things now. You've got no excuse.
Yeah, I think we should embrace that, Mark, because in every college visit that we do, now we start with safe isolation. We direct them to the electrical safety guidance 100%. Note too, because we're reminding the colleges in that and young people. It's doing it on site then. And I've got a question to ask you. Okay, and this is like, where are we when the ECA, the NIC, NAPIT and that visit these contractors? What are they doing to ensure that safe isolation is taking place?
Yeah, great question. We've sort of discussed this, haven't we, like in links and whatnot. And me and Matt picked me up this morning. We drove a nice drive, didn't we? Had a McDonald's breakfast. It was lovely, wasn't it? And we spoke about this because as a company, we put a poll out there on LinkedIn talking about does the CPS schemes, and Richard, Neddy, you being part of the ECA, Electrical Safety First, might be able to answer more for us on this, is do the CPS schemes actually, on a yearly visit, do they confirm that the electrician or the people on site that they're there to see, do they actually look at safe isolation? From my experience, and again, not to throw a spanner in the works or anything, because this isn't about egos, this isn't about trying to drop people in it, this is about coming together as an industry and trying to help improve the industry. From my experience, no. There might be a little caveat there to, well, he hasn't really confirmed it with me because, again, I've done YouTube videos on it. I've been part of this safe isolation procedure, which he was aware of. So maybe he thought, you know, Marcus knows it. But from other people's point of view, and I'd like to see whether you guys can do polls or anything like that to see actually, because the CPS schemes have to have some input into this as well, which I know they do with the guides and stuff like that. But as an industry, can they drive that forward from the assessment point of view, really?
So when you're saying if I was doing a visit on you as an assessment, one of my questions I should ask is, show me your safe working practices. Show me your safe isolation.
And I think that's the important thing, show me. Don't almost become, there was a thing in industry with torque screwdrivers, weren't there? And every electrician had one in the van. It come out on the assessment day. Oh, have you got a torque screwdriver? Yes, we have.
Nice and shiny, never been used.
I would like it to be seen, right, before we do anything, before I ask you to show me a loop test, an RCD test, a ZE, anything like that, can you show me you locking off the work that you've done? Now, obviously that brings problems in its own. If you're taking them to an industrial warehouse where you've got a production machine, that might be a difficult thing to do, but would it be impossible for them? And I know it probably takes it back to maybe being a bit, I don't know if it's a bit babyish, but would the assessors have a consumer unit, you know, and a consumer unit set up where they can say, right, show me it. We can't isolate it there. Can you just show me the practice, and can you show me that you understand the importance of safe isolation?
If you can't demonstrate it, then a professional discussion should certainly, you know, be done to evidence the fact that you do have the underpinning knowledge to be able to perform the procedure, or you know, have your method statements, risk assessments, your RAMs, permits to work if required. All that stuff should be in place. But as far as I know, within the competent person schemes, it is a requirement when they carry out that assessment, and there will be a criteria where they have to, you know, ensure that it's been done.
So, what's your experience of that, Matt?
Yeah, so I've got mine coming up in a few weeks' time. And so I can't, we was talking about this earlier, I can't sort of physically remember them actually asking me or showing the safe isolation procedure. You might show them a loop test or something like that. But in my experience for the last quite a few years, it's been the same guy that comes to see me. And the first hour is just chatting. You know, he comes along. I've got
to see the raccoons.
Come see the raccoons, and so I show him the literature, you know, show him the books and stuff like that, tick box exercises, sort of thing. But you know, show you that I've got that. I've always got a safe isolation kit on show. I don't ever remember them sort of like particularly talking about it. However, that's not to say they don't do it. It might be something I'm not really thinking about. But it sort of comes back to sort of like he's getting to know me in a bit of a...
and that's dangerous, isn't it, at times?
Well, it
Too
is,
familiar.
but he's sort of got to know me. We've gone to quite a few different jobs, and he sort of sees how you work in sort of thing. Now, if he's asking, and that whole time I'm being asked questions, and it's from them answers that he's sort of like making his assessment as well. It's not just visually watching me do something. Anyone can learn maybe a 7-step process to do this. Doesn't mean they actually use it or know it.
We'll have to put Matt on test at the end, and he can describe what to do. Ready for us? That brings me on to come back to Eddie, because who started Safe September and that. And what would really be good to know, Eddie, is the electricity it works regs indicates we should never work live.
No, it doesn't. No, you can work live.
That's
yes,
right.
But it has to be controlled. You're guided not to work live
correct,
where possible. So, and obviously, if you're going to be working live, then there's certain procedures that you have to take. But obviously, your first step is not to work live if at all possible. So, sorry for correcting you on that one.
That's where I was going. Sorry for getting it wrong. I am aware of it. What I was trying to lead to is there are times when we have to work live, which is, not always good, but we have to. Whether you might be on a control panel, we have to do live testing.
Yeah, that's the biggest one, isn't it? Yeah.
And obviously we're not locking off at that time. But what would we doing then in that occasion if we're not carrying out safe isolation? Who do we still notify people?
Yeah, if there's need for it, it depends on the type of work you do. And obviously, now if it was a control panel that was in a factory, obviously you need to go through the processes of speaking to the people, the line manager and such like, because obviously that control panel could be shutting down parts of the system. Even though that you're working on a particular section, you need to find that fault. Sometimes you need it live to be able to find that fault, because not all tests will be able to pull it up. You could, especially when you've got relays coming in and out, or safety relays, or contactors and such like. So you need certain processes to happen to be able to do that. So, but obviously, that's done under controlled measure.
That's the key, isn't it? It's control. So you wouldn't leave an apprentice that's got no experience with that panel open.
No. That's
the difference, isn't it? And having those risk assessments and everything else in place. And
I asked that is to come on to that point is that we carry out safe isolation, and it's safe practice that, but also at times, even though you've done safe isolation, you could still have part of the board that's live and just to send a young person onto it, it's as dangerous. It goes back to that procedure, and that's why I come back to the electrical safety guidance. It's written by a board. It's on YouTube in that we see too many false information, like the board that's all open, and they're talking about safe isolation. I'm just making people aware. There's a great product to follow, download and follow it, and it's got so much information in, and it wants backing up then, like you're doing with Elijah, through the training, the practicing in that and making people aware.
It brings it back to that middle guy we spoke about earlier, really, doesn't it? Like, Eddie is a competent person. So when he locks off...
told you.
He's a competent person, and he's competent enough, and Matt's competent enough to work in or around live conductors, but Elijah isn't. But it brings it to that middle guy, and me and Matt was chatting about this earlier, where the electrician's duty is to promote safe isolation, show safe isolation, but it's also to create a level of competence with that apprentice. Because like Matt was saying, if Eddie never shows Elijah, and all of a sudden Elijah's been sent to a job and he has to work in or around them, not on them, but in or around them, he might be nervous, scared. That might actually cause him to make a mistake. Whereas it's also, in my opinion, the electrician's job to create that level of experience and competence within working around that as well.
And awareness, because
100%.
You can't tell something's live by looking at it.
No.
So they're going to be like an ordinary person at this point. You don't realise the danger of it. And he's certainly not going to know the difference between a single-phase system and a three-phase system.
Okay, I think we can
either or will kill you. But certainly, there is another level of danger at a three-phase system, you know. So
It sort of brings me back to the college thing then, and Matt brought up a good point earlier where he said, well,
I
actually,
keep bringing up good point.
yeah. Do you want to tell him?
I don't know. No, you go.
So what was you speaking about earlier when we was talking about safe isolation being done in sort of the first week of college?
So we said the intake is usually September. So
Yeah,
level 1's level 2. Health and safety is usually the first unit because it's the one unit. So and safe isolation is going to be in there. And so I don't know what the guidance, the guidance, the amount of hours that's allowed for it, but through experience, and I don't think that when we was at the college, I don't think anyone did it any better than what we did. No. But it was taught sort of like, you know, we taught it almost straight away. Yeah. And then we assessed it almost straight away as well. And we had the board at the front. We had all the students lined up. We had all the kit, like you've got your test leads, you've got your proven unit, etc., or a known live position, or if you was using like the plug-in Martindale sort of thing. And then and then it was just like a conveyor belt of doing the safe isolation, and then one of us is then like signing it off and asking a couple of questions. And it's a great system, but we're not given at the college. You're not given the time to actually really.
And you're trying to habit. Yes, that's what I mean. You keep reinforcing it, and you have to try and explain to them that these are skills for life. This is not something to take in now, and it's a lot for them to take in because again, they don't appreciate the danger that they're in because you can't see. You know, you can feel it, but you can't smell it. It is what it is. So. On the face of it, I don't need to worry about it, but actually, you do. You know.
But I went into one college, and they're actually physically got safe isolation kits against every consumer unit, and before every stop, they go through the routine. And there's a danger in that you can come too familiar. Yeah. You know, and they were using peer learning and things like that to check.
Especially when you know it's just an empty consumer unit.
It just becomes so. The idea is to get it as they fill up and check it, but it's not just testing at the consumer unit, is it? Where when we're carrying out safe isolation, it's at the end point, and if you've got a intermediate lighting circuit, that's another skill to learn. Something totally different type of thing. So there's room for colleges really to have a look. I know it's not in the syllabus to that extent we talk about, but if we all keep driving it, we need colleges on board and apprentice provided training to make sure they're doing it repetitively or
the college
frequently.
and the contractors.
And the contractors. This is where going back to Richard, where he said, what are we doing as employers? Well, we just also said, right, every time we're going out, we're taking guidance note 2 with. And that's where I think colleges, they need to play a part. And it's that, and you're going to be a lecturer.
I mean, I don't understand, like, on the AM2, like, people are apparently failing on safe isolation. Now, when we did it, we had the testing rooms upstairs sort of thing, and one of the first things that if you're doing your level 3 or whatever the qualification was, and you was being assessed on the testing, the first thing we always we did was single phase isolation. I think we did 3. We didn't have to, but I think we had 3-phase board. We did
a complete installation, and we spoke about an individual circuit or piece of equipment. You know, and the extra steps you might need, or the extra conversations you might need to have in your own mind to get it right. You know, familiarise yourself with it, because they're not. You know, we purposely took them to the rig upstairs because they weren't familiar with it. They weren't.
And that represented like a house installation.
That's right. It was good.
But also, but we did that sort of at the college, and I don't. So you assume all the colleges and stuff would have that sort of similar level of because it's not that hard, is it, to have a circuit just to isolate and
not
stuff
really,
like that.
But if you remember, most of that stuff is because we built it. Didn't we? I emptied my old garage out that was literally full of stuff. You know, kept driving the van, and me and Matt were like, we can use that, and we just, rather than chuck it in the bin, we made that many things with it. And it helped with Gaz that was always there, it doesn't stop. There's what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do?
And there was always a what if this scenario, what if that scenario, and so
of
we always felt like we was trying to cover.
Yeah, and it's one of the things, like you pick up on colleges there with like materials, you took them out of your garage and stuff like that. Obviously, we as a group, Neil goes around colleges and gives them lots of stock. But is there a shout out for? I don't know if it happens much. It never happened to us at the college we was at. But like yourself, Eddie, if you're on a rip out and you're taking an old 3-phase disc board down, can you donate that to a college for them purposes where they might not have one to actually practice on a 4-pole isolator or a 3-pole isolator where they might differ? Is that something colleges would maybe be interested in?
Oh God, they'd snap your hands off, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But there's another manufacturer that, quite a big one, a French one, that offer all their equipment, circuit breakers, protected devices, consumer units at educational prices. So you buy them for the cost, basically. And more manufacturers, if they could do that purely for colleges, you wouldn't want that, and then they're installing them in, because that's not the way to go.
No.
But certainly for the 3-phase stuff, because a lot of colleges don't have 3-phase stuff really. They'll show you a board that's part of the installation of the college, won't they?
Yeah.
But they don't actually have one to.
There's no reason.
No, unless and even when we delivered that level 3 AL qualification, part of one of the assessments was that 3-phase contactor lighting.
Yes.
But you couldn't, because it was an assessment rig, you weren't allowed to use it for your general. So the addition of that from manufacturers and colleges would literally snap your hand off. But you're adding an extra level, aren't you, going above the standard?
I think
and you're
sometimes
trying
though it's how you can take it as a contractor, because obviously time is money, money is time. But it's how you can take something out. Now with the bigger panels that our panels are probably about 80 odd kilos a piece. So trying to take that off the wall, even with 2 blokes, it's still a fair old bit of weight to be shifting around.
And so to do it nicely, so it's not destroyed for them.
So to be able to take it out nicely is quite difficult. I would say quite difficult, but it's harder work. Whereas if you can disconnect, obviously safe isolate, go through the procedures and everything like that, then we come start stripping out. You cut all the cables going to the door comes off, one piece. Undo 4 bolts or 6 bolts, back plate comes out, that's another piece. Then the box, you see. So it doesn't always work.
No, it's limited, but like a 4-way, a 6-way board, it's plenty ample for that initial step to learn on.
But it just so happens I managed to check out the last one we took out in it was at Bradford, weren't it? We took the control panel out as a complete unit. And the college we was at on Monday, they're having it off us.
Oh, nice,
so it's got a complete set of drawings. It's not been modified or anything, so it's as it was fitted like 20 years ago.
A bit gutted about that. Was that going to be your Christmas bonus scrap money, was it? Would you say, no, Eddie, no? No?
So if I throw one out there then, Matt, what would you want to see regarding safe isolation in the industry? What would you really, if you got a wish list, you could make it happen tomorrow, what would it be?
So it always comes back to college, like I think we've spoken about that. And we've sort of said about what common sense sort of thing, but we've had that discussion earlier about what common sense is nowadays sort of thing. But I don't know, it's like, I think that we're sort of taught to be scared of electrics. And as obviously electrics are dangerous, but we're all sort of hopefully taught to a certain level where we should become the word competent sort of thing. Now, like working with electricity live isn't particularly dangerous. It's how you're working with it. Now, if you're using correct tools and bits and pieces, and your mind is on the job and stuff like that, but accidents can happen. So it's the awareness of it, like I think we've said, sort of thing. But it's the process of carrying out safe isolation, where you're getting the permission from the can you isolate the circuit, getting permission, computers, lighting, whatever it is, making sure that it's everything's shut down or turned off. That's common sense, isn't it? We're not just going to go and turn off a circuit when people are if you're in an office and a load of people have got their computers on. But if you are working in an office and you the temptation to work live is, for example, if you're working changing a couple of sockets and there's you're in an office and you go there during the day, you can't really
Yeah,
turn
yeah,
it off.
no.
So the temptation too much is, oh, I'll just change that socket.
Yeah.
I'll change it live, sort of thing. You know, I'll be careful doing it. So then maybe changing your way of thinking of like, actually, I won't. I'll plan that, and I'll go at night time, or I'll go on a Sunday when the office is shut down.
That's right. And if ever anyone comes into that situation, you only need to look at the Louise Adams.
Yeah, Louise Adamson.
Adamson, check out who lost her brother. He was 19, young apprentice, electric shop.
Yeah.
The amount of impact it has on everyone's life, his employer, the college, you know, the sister, the whole family. And I'd say if anyone's ever doing that, thinking about working live, it's a don't, and go and watch that video, because I think that's really
I've met Louise, and she did a talk for an ECA conference up in Staffordshire, and you know, and to hear it live, I mean, it's hard work listening to it as a video, but to hear it live, I mean, there was 60 blokes in that room, and I tell you what, all of them were close to tears.
Yeah.
You know, it really pulls.
It's like we said, there is no excuse. You know, 99% of the time, there is no excuse to. But like, you know, I'd be lying to say if I've never worked live, sort of thing. And
but some situations require you to do it. But again, like we spoke about in the podcast, it has to be under controlled conditions. There must be a level of competence. You must take careful considerations in what you're doing, isn't there? Really?
The thing is, I sort of go back to that common sense, but I don't want to always use the common sense, because anything can happen. But like, obviously,
default option, work dead. Work safe.
There's an element of risk in everything we do, isn't there? You get in your car, you get on an aeroplane.
I remember taking out a consumer unit in a shop. A taxi
that a 3036 one, was it?
Yeah.
Page now?
Taking it out, same guy, so got everything, took it all out, took all the power out, and it's had a false ceiling. So took the false ceiling down, then went, cut the lights, bang, side cutters gone, off the steps, the lot. Fed from because it were a row of shops, 2 flats down fed. I mean, that you'd think it'd be safe. Again, you'd think
don't assume anything.
Don't assume, and that's what we come to. So, Eddie, what about yourself? What would you like to see happening in the industry more? Because you're the creator of Safe September, as far as
I'm not a creator of it. It was just an idea that Andy and myself come up with, like, just to. Bring it a bit more to light, really. So, creator is probably a bit of a strong word, but it literally it's turned into a habit. That's all. You know, to think about it, you've got to think of that process. Or you know, does it need it? You know, and if it does, then you know what the processes are. Because obviously, safe isolation ain't necessarily just to do with. The electrical aspect is also the mechanical aspect as well. So depending on the trade you're in, if you've got roller shutters with the bolts in, you don't want somebody switching that on and they rip all the door to pieces. So you know, so there is different reasons for it. You know, so
that's happened to someone before.
And so
specific,
it is. It's a big subject, but it's once you get into the subject. There's different layers to it, but it's getting the habit to start off with, and people using it on a regular basis rather than just for the technical assessment or for, you know, their aim2 or whatever it be. It needs to be, you know,
it's part of the job.
Part of the job. It is part of your job. Well, part of your job, Health and Safety at Work Act, it tells you, you know, you've got to work safe. You know, not only for yourself but for others around you. So. You know, the Electricity Work Act, which comes under that, then regulation, you know,
19.
Same again, 99, there you go. And so, you know, there's laws there as well, dictating what you're supposed to be doing. And if you get it wrong, somebody ends up, you know, could potentially end up in prison for it, assuming you've survived it.
It does, in there, you know, I think, put the emphasis on the employer to make sure that right equipment's available and that
that's it.
Electrics at work.
And I think also manufacturers are getting better at it. I think wholesalers, getting it into the wholesalers, there is quite a lot of wholesalers you can go into, like, and you ask them, they haven't got them. Why haven't you got them? It's because we don't get asked for them. Why aren't you getting asked for them? Because the Sparky's not asking for them.
That's right.
So whose fault is it? You know, supply and demand, isn't it? So So it's the sparkies that need to be asking for them.
Yeah.
And the suppliers to be out to supply them. So obviously the manufacturers do, and we've got a set here. So
we've got everyone into habits of doing things.
Yeah.
We've got the need for suppliers to be more proactive in the way they can support it, a label in a box, safe isolation, things like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, like Marcus and myself, we're going to go into colleges and make sure we use Guidance Note 2 to promote everything. What about yourself, Richard? Because you do lots.
Do you think there needs to be stronger messaging? Do you remember years ago when if you put the wrong tyres on your car and the car overturned, and if you climbed up pylons, there was a image of
that's right.
Do you think then that we need to have some kind of campaign where there's a stronger message put out there to show that these are what could happen ultimately? I'm not saying that you could show somebody getting injured or killed, but
the impact.
I think we need so much stronger to get the message across that it is serious.
I wonder how many colleges or anyone who's ever done an introduction into their companies, we're new apprentices, is shown them that Louise Adams video. And because there's one about working at heights as well, where he falls and he's in a wheelchair.
There's been lots of that in other areas of industry over the years, hasn't there? Not putting your seatbelt on and all that type of stuff. Fireworks, Do we need to collectively work together again as an industry and make something more impactful? Is that a conversation we could?
I think that would be something really.
Do you think that would actually work though? Because of today's society, when it comes to videos and such like that, there's that much like violence, as it were. Because it is violent when you get electric shock. It is violent. Believe you me, I've had a few in the past. Having that violence there, is that really going to have that sort of impact?
It's not so much violence if we show it.
It is.
I get where you're coming from.
The after effects of that,
probably more the after effects of what it does to a family.
A recent YouTube video was saying where some chap had been borrowing some buzz bars.
Oh, yes.
But his injury, how he's still alive, I do not know. But his injuries are horrendous.
Yeah.
He's
lost all the skin.
It's melted everything. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And surely that chap wouldn't have done what he did if he knew what the consequences were. Yeah. But he certainly knows what they are now.
I think something hard hitting where I'll go back to Louise's video. That's hard hitting and it's had an impact.
That's right.
But if you talk about the cost, I wonder how many mothers, parents would get involved then and say, "Do you carry out safe isolation at work?" Because if I would lie as dad, and I'd say to him if I were watching that on the telly, go, "Do you do safe isolation at work?" And he'll go, "Oh no, we don't bother." Because they're young, they'll be open. "Oh no, we don't bother. We always work live." Yeah. I'm making an assumption there, but you would get that. Where as a parent, there, I'd be ringing you up and say, "Hey, what's going on here?" Or talking to the training.
And are there different ways to communicate that message now? Whereas back in the day, you didn't have TikTok and all that stuff.
No.
And the generation, things have moved on, haven't they, on how you get that information across. So I think there's more conversations to be had.
It's almost just waiting for someone to take that jump to put that factor in where everyone's maybe, and that's why these are good, isn't it? Because people who often on YouTube and stuff like that don't necessarily want to always upset the apple cart or do something out of the ordinary because they don't want to change it up, whereas maybe it needs someone to do something like that. Again, I don't remember some of the adverts you're on about. Me and Elijah not at that age, are we yet? But I imagine he had the same thing as me in school where never put water on a frying pan with some fire. Younger than you, I know that.
But again, we've only had conversations this week within the charity that is there something else that we need to do as well in schools now to try and to get that awareness out there. So there's lots to do, but nobody can do it individually. So I think collectively, and this is
That's what's good about today, he's great. He's opening up so much conversation. And Matt, you were talking earlier about going into college, going back and doing the day's teaching type of thing, putting it out there. And what we know is, when you go back to that college, it's going to happen because you're passionate about this type of thing.
So, like with these particular safe isolation kits.
Lock-off kit.
Lock-off
Safe
kits.
isolation
The bits that I like are the little crimps where they come in and you bring the MCB down and they go into 2 little holes. Now I think that should be almost like an industry standard on all MCBs, RCBs, because let's face it, every trip is the same. They've got that, it's an up and down lever. They've all got these little two
holes.
That's a nice simple way. With some of these ones, for example, they are good. They're awkward little things, and you need a little Allen key, and you're there, and the Allen key doesn't go in. The little grub screw doesn't go in enough, and then you damage the actual trip itself, and then you're trying to force your padlock on.
And you can buy them separate to go in with kits and everything.
But not every MCB or circuit breaker or trip, whatever it is, they should all have that same little standard where they've just got the 2 little holes either side. Because that's a nice simple way of locking off.
So Richard, something you'd change in the industry then to make it more proactive?
As a manufacturer, I suppose what you could do is include, if you buy a pre-populated board, how difficult would it be to first of all have maybe a QR code link to some guidance like ours, and include like a universal device that fits all of your protected devices as standard. Just include it in the manufacturer instructions in a little pack that you might get your stickers and bits and pieces with. I mean, how proactive is that from a manufacturer? And if you guys do it, you might find that other manufacturers will follow. But if they don't, who cares? Because you're the ones that are pushing it. You're the ones that are offering that, and there's no excuse then. I've just bought this brand new consumer unit from Scolmore. Look at that. It's got all my stickers, all my bits, and actually they're reminding me that work safely. This is some free guidance, and we've included a little tag or lock-off device that fits our devices. That would be a really good step forward.
On the lead, having a hasp come through, like the Aspen staple, and the staple come through, so you can just put your padlock on the whole lot, and that's it, job done. I don't know whether that's maybe an option for your design team.
Some boards do. I can't think.
Yeah, some do. But then you only want to isolate one circuit, and you might still need access to other circuits. And, then you want the different class where you've got, I'm thinking like when you were down the mines and you had a class and you have a mechanical, multiple lock-off kits, there's lots of different devices out there. Going back to what Richard was saying was that, the MCBs, RCBOs, whatever, the 2 little holes in them and there's a standard, and I think you're right that the little toggle press lock that puts the springs out is an ideal advice. They're not expensive, but if they're not expensive for a manufacturer, they're not expensive for an electrician either to buy it. And this is about everyone being involved. And I take it on board that as a manufacturer, great idea, QR code linking to electrical safety. It's a great what you do with Elijah, the way you're actually training him and coaching him in that. And I think that's something we need to get out there. And obviously, hopefully this podcast really drives it forward.
It's funny you said that, because Elijah was saying before the podcast how, why are we even doing this? And he hasn't been affected by college yet, 'cause you haven't been yet, have you?
No.
When did you start again, is it?
November.
And he said, why are we even doing it? Why is this even a thing? And that's just credit to Eddie, that middle guy that Eddie talks about, which we aren't doing enough in industry of. It's just a credit of Eddie has implemented that into Elijah with that mindset already, where he's in thinking, why is this not thing? Why do people not want to get hurt? Why do they want to not be safe? I can't understand.
Well, Eddie told me a great story last year and he'll be able to fill us in on the proper details. But he went to one of the ECA's regional events, and he had a padlock around his neck. But it doesn't stop at learners or contractors. He was trying to get that message across to everyone. Yeah, I thought that was a great story.
It was reminding me, my peers as well. To remind. Like their contracts managers or their sparkies and whatever on the foot soldiers.
Because we all use safe insulated screwdrivers to 1,000 volts in that, and we think, that's going to make me safe. But we know, we don't see these lock-off kits. Question then, can I use a multifunctional tester to carry out safe isolation?
No.
And why's that then?
Well, there's a guidance document from the HSC, and we should really take on board what they say, because it is the HSC GS38, and within that document, again, me and Dave have recorded a video on we try to explain it in such a way, in Sparky language basically. It's very, very simple. So it's not only good for learners, but it's good for everyone just to refresh their knowledge. And within that, it talks about a device that makes contact with where you're measuring for voltage. They don't recommend the use of a multimeter because you could leave that on the wrong setting.
Yeah.
So it's not recommended. And what they are recommending is a approved voltage indicator to a BSEM number, of which at the moment I can't remember.
No, mate.
Is it 62423-1 or something? Not sure.
Just not dash
2.
Yeah.
-2. Is it -2?
Could be.
Yeah. And basically, and Eddie touched on it earlier, that this can only be used for voltage, even if there's no batteries in it or anything. It shouldn't need batteries, but if it doesn't, there are some that do need batteries, but they don't function
And
without
that's
that.
a free guidance as well.
GS38
from the
download.
GS38
Yeah.
HSE
And it talks
website,
about
free to download.
probes, doesn't it? It talks
Yeah.
about leads, and
Excellent.
we've all
The fuse
taught, and we've all,
link, yeah.
and you're constantly asking, name me 3
Yeah.
things from GS38, exposed tips, finger barriers, all that stuff, because all that is trying to eliminate risk, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if you've got a measure for voltage, it's a live test, and we know that EAWR says you can't work live unless you've got suitable equipment, training, knowledge, and it's absolutely necessary. Well, you can't do a live test dead, can you?
No.
So you've got to take all that on board, and GS38, if you was in a court of law and you had to use regulation 29 from EAWR, which is the defence regulation, in order to use that, you've got to prove that you've done everything in accordance with regulation 12, 13, 14. But if you can't, then you're going to be standing in a court of law because you've just got a roller tape and a volt stick. Unfortunately, and you've got to think that it's not just you that you've got to be concerned with, it's other people, other trades, ordinary people that may be in the same building at the same time that don't have that perception of danger like we do. There was a great video that was produced by Tony Coble, God rest his soul, and that we always used to use. I've still got it on DVD. Kids, if you don't know what a DVD is, it's an old form of medium. But it was great, and it was that scenario where they went to replace a socket out in an office, and they didn't tell anyone. He went out, took the socket off, went out to the van, and now we're always distracted by phones and everything else. It's quick, isn't it? You're on your phone, you forget. Somebody comes into contact with those live conductors. They don't know they're live. Somebody gets killed. So it's not just about you. It's about other people around you. But ultimately, you'd end up in a court of law, and you'd have to explain to the judge. You'd have to prove to the judge that you've done everything you could. It's not to say that, somebody, if you did follow the procedure correctly, and I've had it happen to me where a carpenter's disconnected or took the bloody lock off because they wanted to charge the batteries on the drill. But if you've done everything, you can prove it.
So Marcus, before we wrap it up and come to near the end of the session, and if anyone else got anything else to input, please speak up, because we've got to test Matt. We've got to prepare him, ready for his assessment.
Oh, we're going to
so
go through
Matt
the steps.
can tell us through the steps. Elijah, you can test him, and if he makes a mistake, just knock on that table and let him know. So Matt, over to you. What's the step 1 then? First thing you're going to do, safe isolation.
You can put him on the spot now.
So,
I'm not expecting any money.
okay.
Or have you got a scenario, a job that you've been to this week or last week, and explain the background behind it? You were asked to do this type of work. This is the procedure that you followed.
Okay, so probably not.
Or recently, or whenever.
Yeah, so I mean, it's again that word common sense. So the first time you're going to do some work in someone's house. So if I'm going to, I don't know, change a socket over or something like that. So I want to turn the socket circuit off. So the customers in the house, they might be working from home nowadays, so they might have a computer working. Now, could be a laptop, so that doesn't really make any difference. But if it's an old-fashioned computer, so you'd ask them straight away. Tell them need to change that socket. They obviously know you want to change that socket, so you get permission. That's the key word.
Seek permission. Is that right?
Seek permission for the.
What are you getting permission for?
So you can turn the circuit off.
Oh, you're not just going to do it live?
Not just going to do it live. Not this time.
Good man.
Yeah. So I'm gonna. I've got permission. Make sure that they might have a wash machine on or a tumble jar with a cooker on or whatever that situation is. So you're going to make sure that they're shutting down things. So then you're going to identify the circuit, and how are you going to identify it? So you open the lid on the board. Hopefully it's going to be labelled up, and it might say upstairs ring circuit, downstairs sockets, whatever it is. And so you're going to, assume that socket over there is going to be I say the word assumption, but it's so you're going to turn the breaker off and lock it off.
Yeah.
Am I correct so far?
Yeah. Do we do it when we lock it off? Do we put
So
anything on
we lock it off
roll
with a
of tape.
cable,
Tape?
bit of tape, bit of red tape.
That will do, yeah.
Yeah. What do you do with the key, Marcus?
Give it to Elijah, don't I?
Give
Put
the
it in your
key.
pocket.
Put it in your pocket.
Put it in
Okay.
your pocket,
Okay.
yeah.
Any labels?
So you can put a couple of test labels up as well. You can barrier off the area if
Yeah.
you really want to. You really tested me on this one. I'll take out my voltage indicator and proving unit in this situation. That's going to come out soon. And so what am I doing with that? So I'm just going to test that the leads. Well, first of all, I'm going to the voltage indicators that you got. You're just visually making sure they're in good condition, but you're sort of doing that anyway, sort of thing. So you probe onto the voltage indicator or another known source, but in this case, voltage indicator, and you're going to see that it comes up with 230 volts.
Yeah.
Then you're going to test at the circuit.
Yeah.
So if it's a socket single phase, you're going to go between line and neutral, line and earth, neutral and earth. Just check.
Yeah. Would you change that, Richard? Would you gone on your earth and then the live? I used to like it that way.
There's been a number of conversations, hasn't there, recently? There's been a few different videos on, social media, etc. But conventionally, we'd always try and go to the point of least risk or danger, which you'd like to think was the protective earth. There's nothing. Crucially,
if you prove safe isolation.
there are 3 steps. If you miss a step out,
Yeah.
then of course you haven't completed all the 3 steps. You must ensure you follow the procedure, but carry out all 3.
Sorry, Matt, putting you on the spot.
Well, we haven't finished it.
So now you can tell us after you've carried out your.
So you've tested. There's no voltage, and then you reprove once again, and that makes sure that the indicators are reliable, working, etc.
One of the things I used to do when I was on site, when I was doing safe isolation, is I know we'd say about the volt stick, and people use them so much for safe isolation, it's unreal when they shouldn't be used. But obviously, what's that?
Why not?
It's a good question, because people might be listening to this thinking, well,
So we wouldn't use a volt stick because, again, we can't confirm their reliability. So we can't confirm they're physically going to work. How many times have you had it in your short pocket and you hear it beeping away because of the static? There's no way of proving the lamp is. You could argue a known source, but for me, that isn't a good indicator. It's not necessarily going to pick up all voltages everywhere. I've held it on my radiator before and it's gone off. So it might give us a false indication. But what I did use it for, and I particularly think is good practice, is when we enter that enclosure or socket that we believe we've isolated, we don't know it, so we still have to proceed with caution. So I used to stick my volt stick in there just to give me an idea. My volt stick wouldn't illuminate, I still proceed with caution, but it's given me that little bit of I'm on the right track.
great idea, because even if you're trying to reduce risk, and like we said earlier, when you've got more than one source of supply, there's other factors you've got to consider, because you might have another source of supply returning via another circuit. And going back to what Matt was talking about,
but it could be fed off the upstairs socket.
Anything.
Couldn't it, that particular socket? So, see.
Could you consider then, and if it was feasible, would you then isolate the complete installation, even though you're only working on a circuit?
Well, that's a, and again, but I spoke earlier where I took out a consumer unit, safely isolated, locked it off, and it was getting fed from two shops down. You still, I didn't carry out safe isolation. Just to go back, we're carrying out safe isolation, or not. We're locking off at the board, but we should be carrying out safe isolation where we're working.
At the point of work.
At the point we're working. And, safe isolation could be an isolator, the closest point. Could be, isolators and things like that.
Yeah. Or from Eddie's point, it could be a particular part of a control circuit within a huge panel. You can't turn the whole panel or shut the whole panel down because of the other processes that are. But if he's got to replace a particular component within that panel or work on some control part of the panel, you've got to isolate that particular part, haven't you? Rather than
some of the sites that I work on, we actually lock the whole site off. I mean, that's a form of safe isolation on its own, because you're not letting anybody else into the building. The only people that are in there is like the 3 sparkies on site, so it's you've already cut that risk down, and it's all about risk at the end of the day. It's reducing risk.
Just to go back, I know we're sort of coming to the end now, but something Richard said earlier, and the question got asked about, can you use your multifunctional tester? So interestingly, we spoke about this the other day, and you used the word, the GS38, don't recommend.
Yeah, it's recommended.
And that recommends a really because that's
Horrible
not
word.
that's not actually saying you can't.
Well,
That's-
let's say.
Saying you should.
but then
So-
what did we say when we used the word recommend the other day?
Yeah, so in BS 7671, one of the amendments they made is they brought in a table, didn't they, where they explained that the word recommend is should. So even though then, and again, it's one of them things with BS 7671 for me, it's hard for them to use the word shall, which I understand why it's hard for them to use the word shall, because they apply to lots of different situations. However, when they use the word recommend, which means should, you then have to argue the case. Somebody's going to say, well, you should have done it, why didn't you?
Well,
rather than you was
That's the question
recommended
the judge
to.
will be asking.
we go
Yeah,
back
100%.
to the HSE guidance,
That's right.
and that's where it clearly states, no.
But this is where it should
indicator.
just be black and white. It should
Yeah.
be say you can't use this. Not we wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
No, you cannot use it.
Yeah, I agree there, I agree.
But don't forget the
because-
guidance is not just for electricians, it's for engineers or
Of course, yeah.
equipment repair people that are maybe replacing a component on a piece of equipment.
when you
Gas
say that-
engineers, it applies to everyone.
But when you say recommend,
Yeah.
we don't recommend it. That's open to interpretation.
Yeah. Whereas if you shall not use this,
Yeah.
there's no excuse for anyone to.
You cannot use
Whereas,
it,
and the problem is the world we live in is full of loopholes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to find a loophole.
When we go back to that, then that's clearly showing, and I think we agree there's the lack of knowledge and the regular training. There's a lack of it out there, the lack of awareness, because can I use this or can't I use this? And quite clearly, if we go to the electrical safety first,
Website
document,
for it. Yeah.
it's there, guidance note 2, and it clearly states and gives you examples of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's your answer. That's our answer as an industry. Direct them to that.
Yeah.
And regardless of what everyone else
And
says,
individually and
GS38.
collectively, keep fighting the fight. Eddie's fighting the fight. Fair
Yeah.
play, brilliant. That Scolmore.
the movement
Absolutely.
and we're going to be
the more
pushing
that,
it moving forward.
yeah.
And we're not just going to try and push it for September. And
No,
I
that's
think
right.
we haven't said that in the video yet. By the way, if anyone's new to safe isolation, it isn't just for September, is it? It's for life, isn't it, Eddie? That's what you say. It's for life. So, and we're trying to push it, and everyone's trying to come in.
I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I just thought it was nearly over. This September's nearly over. I was like, I'll go back.
But the idea of doing this podcast at the end of September, like I said to everyone when we sort of invited, was people do a lot of the start and that, and we tried to do stuff all the way through and at the end, just so it follows through and keeps that conversation going into the other months. So.
Yeah, and that's so a massive thank you to the people here today, to Elijah. Thank you for coming, and participating.
Give you loads of chocolate, yeah?
To Eddie from Pegasus Electrical, ECA guy. Check him out. Any information, Eddie, thank you for coming today.
My pleasure.
To Matt, you
can't say his company name, can you? Do you want me
I
to say
can't.
Electrodel.
I'll just call him.
I like that. Yeah,
It's good.
Nice ring.
And to Richard from Electrical Safety First.
Pleasure. Check out the website. Lots of free guidance on there. And obviously we've done that little video on GS38, but we did have some plans, although this year has gone. We have recorded some single phase safe isolation videos in a real life scenario, and we did have a plan to go to Eddie's unit because he's got a 3-phase supply there with lots of equipment and all bits and pieces, and we did have a plan to try and do some videos there because we want to try and make it as realistic as we can, rather than
I
something
think
that's
a bit of
simulated. and-
something people can relate to,
Yeah,
rather
for
than
sure.
just a wooden board behind with a board in it with no cables in it. It's hard for people to relate in the industry. But just quickly on your best practice guide 2, a lot of people think it's just a flow chart, don't they? Because that's what's advertised the most. But actually, when you read through it, we've done a long video on it, which we haven't released yet. Hopefully, it will be released in the coming weeks. We've done a long video explaining
Good
each step.
scenarios in
There's
there.
a lot of information before the chart and actually after the chart. So it's not just a flow chart. Read the information and take from it,
And of course, it will be adapted over time with the introduction of Amendment 4, 5, 6, all the rest of it. And of course, diverted neutral current. There's lots of considerations, and it will constantly evolve. But because it's digital, we can, keep improving it and making it better. But again, as we said earlier, quickly, it's not we can't make the decisions without it going out to all the members, because it has to be agreed, and then it can only be put
And
in
that's
when
why
we've
it's
agreed it.
important as well. Like you've just mentioned, it's constantly changing. Electricians don't just take it from, I learned it in college, it's the same for the rest of my life. It's constantly changing. We apply that method for lots of things we do in industry where the regs are changing. We now have to think about, RCD protection, AFDDs, premature collapse of the wiring system, protected escape routes. We constantly follow that guidance and we try and keep up with that, but maybe we don't with safe isolation. So from a contractor's point of view, maybe it's that mindset of getting into, well, I need to keep up with this now because this is going to somewhere I'm not familiar with prosumers and diverted
Don't be
neutral
afraid-
currents,
don't
borrowed
be afraid to
neutrals.
ask.
Yeah,
100%.
don't be afraid to ask. That's one thing I picked
yeah,
up from Eddie earlier. Just before we go, don't forget to subscribe and like. And if you'd like me and Marcus, or Marcus on his own, to visit any college or training providers, we're more than happy to come in along and offer some CPD. Thanks for everything. Thanks, guys. Yay! Bye.